Hello there, and welcome to the iCode channel. This is a second part of a two-part series for configuring your Retropie with the iCode Duo device. In part one, we configured the joysticks, and now we're getting ready to configure the paddles. So to use paddles with your Retropie and the Duo device, it requires some changes to some of the configuration files on the Retropie, specifically RetroArch. So we'll be showing you that. So make sure you've got your Retropie connected to the network. I've got it connected to the network. You can FTP or WinCP into it, which is what I'm going to use. Let me show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my desktop here, and I've got WinSCP installed already. And this is the IP address of my Raspberry Pi. I'm going to go ahead and log in with my Pi username and password, which is Raspberry by default. And you'll notice that in the option Retropie configs all RetroArch autoconfig folder, this is the folder that you want to go to. If you programmed your joystick, you would see this file, which is for the configuration of what those changes that you did. So when I open this file, you'll notice that all we programmed was up, left, right, down, and we mapped button B to be our fire button, which is 0 in Linux. So in the video of this section, you'll be able to see I've got some additional lines that you need to copy paste into here. I'm going to go ahead and copy paste those here. In fact, we also need this one that you should already have that I forgot to add. It's actually button A. So this is what you're going to copy paste from the video. And what this does, it'll also program the left analog to the same axis as the sticks. Because if you don't have analog settings configured, it's not going to work. And then we also need button A configured for the second button, because when there are two players connected, paddle first player paddle is actually going to be button 1, second player is going to be button 0. So that's important as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and exit. And that's the only configuration file configuration change you need to make. The rest of the way, we're going to be right back onto the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to go ahead and on the Raspberry Pi go to a Breakout, which is a paddles game. And before we can use Breakout, by default, the core is set up to look at only digital gamepads. So the Stella 2014 core needs to be configured to use the analog pads for paddle games like this one, because it cannot auto-detect them. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So on your keyboard, remember I said you need to know where the select and X buttons are. So I'm going to push X and then select to get to the RetroArch menu. This is RetroArch. And we're going to go down to Controls. And you're going to go down to Port 1 and select that. And you'll notice that the device type is set to gamepad, and this is a digital only, which is the default. And we're going to change this from gamepad to paddles. If you don't see this option, then you probably don't have the latest Retropie, and you don't have Stella 2014 version 393 as it shows at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to go in and change it to paddles. And then because the buttons are reversed for the standard gamepad, we had to do them backwards. We have to also change these. So instead of P1 being first and P2 being second, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to push P2 on the top for the fire button, and then this one is going to be P1. Okay? And then we're going to do the same thing for port 2 controls for players 3 and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and change the device type to paddles. And then I'm going to change this to player 4. fire, and then this to player 3 fire. All right, I'm going to push the back button, and I'm going to go ahead and save the game remap file. Now, if you have all your paddle games in a folder, like paddle games, you could save the remap file for all your paddle games once, and then next time you go start any of the games, as long as they're in that folder, it'll use this mapping. But I don't have them in another like that in the folder, so I'm going to go ahead and save the game remap file. And notice it said saved successfully. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back to the quick menu and resume. Okay, let's go to a 4-player game. So I'm going to push select to get to 4, and then I'm going to push start to see what we got. All right, I'm going to disconnect my joystick from the adapter there, and I'm going to bring my paddles out. I've got 2 sets of paddles here. So the first one, these 2 right here, I'm going to connect to port 1. So let's do that. Here we go, port 1. And then my other set of paddles, I'm going to connect to port 2. So that's up to 4 players. Okay, so on my port 1, I'm going to move left and right, and as soon as it recognizes my paddles, the little light went on the Duo right over here. That tells you it's in paddles mode, and now you can see my paddle is actually working well, which is great. And on my other set of paddles, my player 3 is also working quite well, so I can move left and right. And then if I push the fire button, it's going to start the game. So it is working fine. Okay. So let's let the ball go and try the other 2 players. So player 2 is green, so that's working well as well. And then that one's working well as well. So I'm going to go ahead and push fire, and there we have it. So really, that's all there's to it to get your paddles game working. Now Warlords should work as well with that same configuration, but you do have to change the configuration and save your remap file, unless you put them all in the same folder. So I hope this was helpful. Give us a thumbs up. If you have questions, put them into the comments. I'll be happy to help. Have a great day. Take care.